Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Untitled Marvel Project. I'm your host, Tanner Dykstra, joined as always by my friend from across the vast multiverse. It's Tucker Hazel.
Oh yeah,
We're here to do a little mid-season discussion review, halfway retrospective of the
yeah,
What If television series on Disney Plus from Marvel. Tucker, have you heard of these guys, Marvel? They're doing crazy stuff nowadays.
yeah. They've been out there. They've been putting in the work, and I think eventually they'll be able to keep up with the big boys.
That's true. And speaking of keeping up with the big boys, if you want us to keep up with the big boys on
Ooh,
this site called YouTube, you should subscribe to Backlog Banter. And
sure.
what if you went over and clicked that like button on this
Yeah,
video? Who
find out.
knows what sort of butterfly effect, universe ending effects that may have?
Hmm.
And if you want to even go even farther than that, you should join our Discord.
Yeah.
Just to talk, just to run down all those branching timelines that may cause. But Tucker, let's talk about. We're halfway through. What if we're over
Yes, we
halfway?
are.
I should say.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What do you give me some opening thoughts as a series as a whole so far?
The series as a whole so far has brought up two major things that are making this pretty much by far my least favorite Disney Plus
Hmm.
project. Is that I don't think the animation holds up great. I think it works great in certain sequences and not
Hmm.
so well in others. It's very inconsistent, and also that inconsistency is pulled over to the voice cast, which
Hmm.
is comprised of a patchwork of MCU actors and voice actors that were not in the MCU beforehand, and some of those MCU actors are just not used to voice acting, and it
No.
shows. And so I think that inconsistency is what is bringing me down on this as a whole. But reflecting on each of the episodes, I am positive on all of them. I do find something to enjoy out of each of them. And as the show is going, I think it is getting its feet underneath it. It's getting its sea
Hmm.
legs. And I think it's sort of coming into its own. And I'm very excited to see how this first season of What If closes down and is, of course, brought into the future because maybe these things will show up in later projects, characters, storylines, whatever. But
We've certainly gotten hints that some of these things, like Captain Carter after that first episode came out. I think there's rumors of Haley Atwell showing up in
yeah,
Doctor Strange too. But yeah, I'd have to agree with you that it's vastly inconsistent, certainly more than anything we've gotten on a Disney
yeah,
Plus series so far. And I think it is because of that anthology nature of it.
yeah.
Those other shows are basically, 6 hour movies or
Yes.
4 to 5 hour movies, and this is telling a contained story in 30 minutes, which can prove to be difficult
Yeah.
in a lot of these cases. I do want to say I think you hit the nail on the head with the animation talk there. It's great in some of those action sequences, but boy howdy are some of those people talking just not done very well.
Yeah, there's
And
some rubberiness to the lips when people are talking, and the faces that are supposed to look like actors we're familiar with just sometimes are really
yeah,
uncanny.
they do some really weird stuff because I, I want to talk about each episode in
Yes.
part a little bit, but particularly like Bruce Banner
Oh,
is
yeah, in
like
episode 5, yeah.
and episode 4 and 5, no, just five,
No, 3 and 5.
3 and 5. Thank you,
Yes.
episode 3 and 5, because they do in three they do this weird amalgamation of Mark Ruffalo and Edward Norton.
Is
So
that true? I
like
didn't really notice that.
I think that's what
I
they
guess
were
he kind
going
of just looked
for.
like a white guy to me.
It is just a kind of a regular looking guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he obviously shows up again in episode 5, and I sort of had those same issues because it's uncanny to hear Mark Ruffalo's voice coming out of a guy who looks basically nothing like him.
Yeah.
Um, and that happens a few times in the other ones too, like Spider-Man in this most recent episode, the
Yeah,
zombies one.
though there are reasons for that. It
Yeah,
is
that
not
makes
Tom
sense.
Holland Spider-Man. It's the MCU version of that character, but it's not voiced by Tom Holland. He
And
has
doesn't
sort of
look like Tom Holland.
no, yeah, he sort of has an amalgamation animated Spider-Man look to him.
Hmm.
You've seen Peter Parker unmasked in plenty of Spider-Man shows, and this is sort of just the what if version
Yeah.
of an animated Spider-Man, which I actually think works fine because that voice actor is a good voice actor. I'm fine that it's not Tom Holland. He plays a good Peter Parker. He
Hmm.
plays well off the rest of the cast. So the fact that he doesn't look like Tom Holland or that version doesn't look like Tom Holland, I think it would actually be weirder if
Sure.
it was a animated Tom Holland with not Tom Holland voice.
Sure. Well, Tucker, since we're already talking about it, you wanna mix it up a little bit and work backwards from episode 5 to 1, since we already
Sure.
talked about episode 1.
Spice it up. Yes.
Exactly. So yeah, episode 5, obviously, for all you who watched, was the Marvel Zombies
What
episode, which
if
is
zombies?
what if zombies?
Yeah, which
And
is
it's
not a full sentence. Usually they're
no.
full sentences or questions, but what if zombies? Say
Um,
supposed to pronounce
but
it.
I think it's cool because it's set at an interesting point in the
Yes.
MCU's history. You know,
Mhm.
Hulk crashes back down to Earth from the Bifrost to follow basically at the beginning of Infinity War,
Yeah.
and from that point forward, it's a zombie story instead of a
Mhm.
preparing for Thanos story.
Yeah.
And you have what's
You've
his
got a great
face?
cast.
Yeah, you have a great cast.
An amalgamated cast of all sorts of wacky MCU characters that are just thrown together to survive in the apocalypse. And I think that's why this episode 5, watching that today, was one of my favorites. I think it takes an entirely new spin on the story. It introduces characters who have never met before. It has a
Mhm.
really diverse cast of characters who have never met before, and it plays really well into just going into its own story. It's paced well because of that. It has some interesting moments because of that, and there's plenty of really cool ideas in there,
Yeah,
which I think they're playing into the future a little more, because this episode ends on a cliffhanger.
that's true.
Is there going to be a part 2 next week? I don't know. Is it going to be wrapped up next season? I don't know, but I
I
think that this is
yeah,
left open for continuation.
I have
Very
to say
directional.
though, that because a lot of these do end on like an open-ended sort of cliffhanger thing, like what will
Yeah.
happen next. I have to say, if you're talking zombie Thanos and his army
You gotta do that.
versus uh Spider-Man,
Yes.
Ant-Man's head,
Yes, with the Doctor Strange cape.
yeah, Bruce Banner, not Hulk,
Yes.
Bruce Banner,
Well,
and
he's Hulk at the end of the episode
is that true?
because
What?
he fights off a bunch of zombies. He
Oh yeah, that's
turns
right.
into
I forgot
Hulk and
about
lets
that.
them fly away.
I
And
forgot about
T'Challa
that.
with one leg.
And T'Challa with one leg.
Yes,
Thanos
those are
is
the
going to
Avengers.
Thanos is going to wipe the. He's got 5 Infinity Stones, Doctor.
Yes.
He's going to wipe the floor with that team. Are you kidding me?
But it's great. I mean, I think there's an interesting story to be told there. They still have threads that are left dangling. I'm interested in this set of characters. I love Ant-Man's head. I think Paul Rudd does a great job
Yeah.
as one of the voice actors. Seeing that, I thought we were done with Chadwick Boseman's performances. But
Yeah.
seeing this one recorded and
No, yeah,
what
he
could
has-
be in the rest of them.
He has
Or
a
some of
few
them?
more. I think he has like 2, maybe 1, 2 more for the rest of the series. But yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like you said, I think it's a really good, like, interesting crew of characters. The
Yeah.
whole how to survive the zombie apocalypse thing at the beginning is pretty fun.
Mhm. You've got
They sort of I noticed in this series they're really maligning Hank Pym, since he both
yeah.
kills off all the Avengers in episode 3 and starts the zombie apocalypse in episode 5.
Yeah. Which whatever doesn't
Yeah.
really mean anything. But I think on the whole, I think this was a great episode. And I if they are continuing it as my headcanon is, I really hope that happens. I'm excited to see
Yep.
what happens.
Me too. Okay, backing it up, we're gonna wheel it back, Tucker. We're wheeling it back to episode 4 this time.
Which is what if Stephen Strange lost his heart?
What if Doctor Strange was a bad guy? A worse guy, I should say. He's always kind of been an asshole, but what if he was a really bad guy?
Mhm.
I think this was one of my favorites because
Yes,
I think as they get farther removed from like the plot of an actual movie, they get better, and it sort of helps it along with its confined time frame to put it into time loops like it is.
Yes, exactly.
I liked Benedict Cumberbatch in this. I liked his whole thing of trying this absolute fixed point in time and him.
Yes. Which I think is them setting up something.
Yeah.
The idea that there are events in the multiverse that cannot be changed.
Yeah.
Even with time travel, even with the time stone, even with multiversal buffoonery and whatever the fuck's happening in No Way Home, there are some things that will stay the same.
Yep.
And I think that'll become a theme throughout phase 4 as we are continuing to be introduced to branching timelines and multiverses and magical powers and space shit and all sorts of stuff. I'm excited by that. And I think that this episode does a lot in terms of establishing that and establishing what these episodes can be in terms of telling a very unique story that has very little to do with the actual story of Doctor Strange, because the events of Doctor Strange finish before the episodes even start.
Yeah, exactly.
We see sort of a different spin on his accident, but that's really it, which I think
Yeah,
is interesting.
which
And
plays into that multiverse thing. Like this
yes,
is an entirely different universe where his accident played out differently. It's not just
yes.
like a diverging point from the MCU that we know.
And
Um,
the animation works great in this episode.
Absolutely, with all
The
the magical creature stuff. Yeah,
the timey wiminess and Doctor Strange fucking shattered glass multiversal reality stuff looks awesome. The
yeah.
fight between Steve, like main, good Stephen Strange and corrupted
I will
Stephen
say
Strange.
the thing of the Ancient One like splitting him into two
Yeah,
was kind
that's
of
weird.
confusing.
Yeah.
Also, the Ancient One herself in this episode
Oh,
is just like a Muppet mouth opening and closing.
good God, it's
That's
weird.
really bad animation, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
But two other things about this episode, final things to say, is
yeah,
that this also gives the watcher a little bit more of a
yes,
role. He's narrating throughout the entire episode, which the other episodes hadn't really done.
mm.
And Stephen Strange recognizes him, or like
Talks to him. Yeah,
notices that he is existing, and that's
yeah,
really interesting, because does that mean that the watcher is becoming more influential or involved in the timeline,
mm.
or that version of Stephen Strange got so powerful he could sense the watcher, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I think it's both, and I think they're also setting up because like the Watcher's classic thing is saying I cannot
Oh,
interfere, and then he
I ain't
interferes.
doing shit.
And then he interferes.
Yeah.
I think they're setting up that up later for down the line because Doctor Strange asks him to fix it, which
Yeah.
plays into my final thought about it. It's really cool that we don't get a cliffhanger for this one.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange literally destroys his entire universe, and
Yeah.
he's like trapped in this little like magic ball thing to live out the rest of eternity living with him his mistake. It's the logical end of that story, and I think that's maybe what makes this maybe my favorite, maybe second favorite. Chris
Yeah.
Tucker, I think my favorite is episode 3. What if all
Oh,
the Avengers
interesting.
got all the Avengers got murked or whatever?
What if
Whatever
the
it's
world
called.
lost its Earth? What if the world lost its mightiest heroes?
Yes. Because this is the one that I think finally diverges the most from working our way back, finally
Yeah.
diverges the most from like an MCU movie. It explores it sort of takes all of these movies that is from an era that I don't think they're
Sure.
probably going to explore a lot throughout the rest of the series. You know, phase one,
Yeah.
those first few films. And it's kind of like a cool murder mystery for most of it. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is going on? You're following Nick Fury through Fury's big week. It's always when Tony Stark dies, you're like, what the hell is going on? He just drops dead in this diner. Yeah, and you have a lot more Black Widow stuff going on in there. And you get a different spin on Loki, and he takes over the world at the end. He actually succeeds in doing that. And obviously that results in this sort of same thing as episode 5, building a piecemeal Avengers team out of who is it? It's Carol Danvers.
Yeah.
I forget who the other ones are. Captain America. Sorry, I forgot about that one.
Because he hasn't been defrosted yet.
He hasn't been defrosted yet.
By the time everyone's dying. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, it is this piecemeal team that, again, I think would be really interesting to return to as they take back the Earth from Loki. But Tucker, what did you think about episode 3?
I think that conclusion of setting up whoever's left team is the only thing I find interesting about episode 3.
Sure.
I think that this actually does the worst in terms of just recreating moments we're familiar with. You get the scene from Thor where Thor's trying to lift the hammer and Hawkeye's up in the tower. You get the scene in Iron Man 2 where Fury and Natasha meet Tony at the diner.
Oh, yeah.
The college campus from Incredible Hulk, and it just feels like, the title is If They Lost Their Mightiest Heroes. So I'm like, okay, the Avengers are gonna die. I don't think it's that insane. This is a spin-off multiverse, so it doesn't really matter. And it just feels like it's kind of recreating those moments with a lot of plot points just thrown in. Oh, okay. Oh, it was Hank Pym the whole time, and that was because this happened back then. Oh, and Loki's here, and he's got to deal with Nick Fury, and there's a whole thing. I just think there's too much going on.
Sure.
And on top of that, it doesn't introduce like a spin-off, unique version of a character that I find interesting. You've got T'Challa Star-Lord in episode 2. You've got Captain Carter in episode 1. You've got Evil Strange in 3 and 4 rather, and you've got the totally different characters in episode 5. I think that this one just feels like I don't know. It's cool. It's interesting. I like that it's more violent. You get to see the Avengers die in these violent ways, which is pretty interesting. But on the whole, I thought the twist was pretty mediocre. I think it's overstuffed with different things, and the Black Widow and Tony voice actors are just terrible. They're
Oh,
just
really?
bad.
I disagree. I thought they were pretty good.
Oh God, I really
Um,
hated them.
what was I gonna say? Oh, quick final thing. Apparently, the Hulk exploding at the end was supposed to be like really visceral, like blood and guts and stuff. That's what they had
Yeah,
storyboarded, and obviously that got shut down before it went to the animation stage.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you hear that?
That's an inside scoop from the Weekly Planet podcast.
Why do
Somebody,
they know that?
an animator from the show, like anonymously wrote in and said that.
Sure. Oh, that was me, by the way.
Oh, okay, cool. Episode 2, T'Challa Star-Lord.
Mhm.
Now, this
What if
is
T'Challa was Star Lord? I actually don't know the specific name for this. I
yeah.
just kind of guessed.
Now this is where it sort of dropped the ball for me on episode 2. I really didn't care for this one. I think Chadwick
Hmm.
Boseman had a lot of fun in this role.
Yeah, he's a solid voice actor.
He's a solid
it's
voice
not
actor.
top tier.
He's not the worst by far.
Oh yeah. I think Karen Gillan's the worst in this episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
She just really annoyed me. Seth Green was great as Howard the Duck. Let's bring up that the fact that Howard the Duck is involved in this episode is phenomenal. This is
great.
The biggest role he's had in the MCU yet, and I can't wait to see how that goes further.
Yeah, but this one really felt really poorly paced for me. It felt like we're fast forwarding through this entire 30 minutes.
Sure,
I really didn't care for the Thanos stuff, even though a lot of people found it funny. I'm like, I get that it's like a joke thing, but Thanos like literally genocided the half the universe, and now he's like in here joking about him almost genociding half the universe.
Well, he didn't in this universe.
That's what I said, almost. But we as an audience know that happened. If you want
that
it to
happen,
and if you want that to be like this traumatic thing, which they're obviously going for in the MCU films, I think it's a bit of a weird move, quite honestly.
I don't know. I think for me, this episode is in the middle in terms of my enjoyment of it. I think that the way that it diverges from the Guardian story almost immediately is really interesting. The concept of the Ravagers picking up an Earthling is basically the only thing that's remaining. And on top, and outside of that, this is an entirely different story. It's a heist story breaking into the collector's base.
Vault.
You've got essentially an entirely different team of characters based around Yondu and T'Challa Star-Lord. You've got a Nebula who was never tortured, so she's got hair. You've got silly Thanos, who I find entertaining.
Yeah.
You've got oh God, what is
Jaimin Hansu, Korath the Accuser. Korath, yeah.
Okay. Well, regardless, I think there's a fun team there. Sean Gunn as Kraglin was not a great voice actor. I thought he was pretty annoying. But I thought this episode was fun. I think it has some fun fights. I like the idea of showing how important this one moment is by pulling that out to, okay, if T'Challa was Star-Lord and was able to like communicate better than Peter Quill would, even Thanos would be able to come around. Like, I think that's where the line is drawn for me and why I find that interesting.
Here's what I will say. If there's two people this series has maligned so far, it's Hank Pym, which sure, justified, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And Peter Quill Star-Lord. Yes. Because this episode's conceit is basically like, man, Peter Quill's a fucking idiot. He fucked everything up so hard. Why couldn't he just be like T'Challa and literally fix everything in the entire universe?
That is why this episode is middling to me. There is a conceit there that you have to like let your brain go on that can be frustrating. It's like, okay, T'Challa is basically just the perfect person.
Yeah, I get
he can
that
fix
he's
everything.
I get that he's like educated in diplomacy as stuff as like the prince of this nation, but also Yondu was a lot nicer to T'Challa than he was to young Peter Quill. He's like, I'll show you the stars, my boy. Where to Peter Quill, he's like, I'm gonna fucking eat you and tear your guts out. and people are like, man, why did Peter Quill turn out to be such an idiot?
No, no, there's definitely that. Yeah,
T'Challa was also picked up after like his dad was like, no, you must stay in Wakanda and not see the world. And Peter Quill was picked up right after he saw his mother die of cancer.
Yeah.
So
T'Challa was just like out fucking literally frolicking in the field.
Yeah. Peter Quill was running away in tears after his mother passed away. So there's a bit of trauma that separates these two as Star-Lord. But I can go on that rant another time.
No, I
Wheeling it
think you
back,
just did.
Tucker. I think I just did. Wheeling it back all the way back. We talked about episode 1 in a previous episode of the Untitled Marvel Project.
Yeah.
But Tucker, how is this one sitting a few weeks removed, having gotten some of these other episodes in your system, in your belly?
Not gonna lie, I totally forgot we did that episode.
Yeah.
Oops. Well, regardless, retrospectively, I still think this episode is middling. I think this is the episode, obviously, because we were introduced to it, where I was starting to feel a little bit weird about the animation. Like, oh, okay, that doesn't really work for some people's faces. The voice cast is obviously incredibly imbalanced, but I still think that Captain Carter is one of the more interesting characters we've been introduced to through this multiverse, and obviously why she's kind of the face of it. I like that that Steve Rogers has this Mark I Iron Man suit. I think that's really cool. And I like the animation a lot in the action. I think this episode has the best action, except for maybe episode 4.
Yeah, they nailed the animation for this first episode to get people hooked in, because those action sequences are great. I think the face stuff is still a little rough. Certainly better than a lot of the other episodes.
Yes.
But yeah,
but the fact is that this one, I think, is held back by the fact that it's just recreating the events from First Avenger. It's so shoehorned into, oh, you remember the train sequence? Oh, you remember breaking out the guys from the compound? But it's different because Carter's doing it.
Also, there's a giant interdimensional squid who also shows up in episode 4. Hey,
it's true.
Little detail for you there. But Tucker, I want to do 2 more things before we round out this episode. I want you to have your ranking of the episodes.
I've got it written down.
I have a final question that we'll get to. But Tucker, give me your ranking.
I'm gonna start from the bottom. My least favorite, and I think it was clear from my disdain for it, was episode 3. What if the world lost its mightiest heroes? I think that episode just has some of the biggest examples of pacing issues, in my opinion. Then episode 1, well, I like it. I think that the fact that it sticks so closely to the First Avengers plot is a big detriment. Then episode 2, which I said I like a lot. I think that it has that major issue of, really just indirectly shitting on Peter Quill and having some plot contrivances. But I think there's a lot of creativity there.
Yeah.
Episode 4, and then episode 5 is my number 2. I'm really excited to see where that goes in the future. And I think it was a great balance of all sorts of characters and animation and ideas. I like that the virus comes from the quantum realm. I was like, how are they going to do a zombie virus in the Marvel universe? And that's a pretty natural way to introduce it. And then episode 4, I think, just works the best in terms of pacing, in terms of introducing the idea of absolute points, all sorts of stuff, and large integration of the Watcher, who I am really interested to see how the Watcher and Jeffrey Wright's performance, who he's great, plays out in the rest of the series. So that's my ranking.
Tucker, I can agree with you there.
5, 2, 1, 3.
Now, Tucker, I can agree with you there. I'll go best to worst real quick here. Number 4 is the best. Evil Doctor Strange. That's the best for me. Followed by episode 3. I really enjoy that one.
You nerd. You would.
You would. Followed by episode 1. I think in retrospect, I like Captain Carter a lot. I like those action sequences a lot. And playing the beat for beat First Avenger thing has really waned in my mind as a detriment to that episode. Then episode 5, then episode 2.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
but Tucker, my final question is, 5 episodes in, are these episodes interconnected, or are they going to be tied together at some point or not? Are we going to get a merging of the multiverses in a 2-part finale or something?
I can see the last episode being sort of a multiversal collapse or something, and a couple of the characters meeting each other. And then half of the next season of this being the continuation of those stories. I think they want to finish out introducing characters and concepts and universes, and bring them together a little bit at the end, introduce the Watchers as a larger force, and then save the real crossovers and bringing the stories to a larger idea in the next season. Because What If is probably gonna, as far as we know, get a season every year or something like that, which is kind of crazy to me. I don't necessarily know if I want them sticking to one series so often. I think 2 seasons is kind of the max that I would do for anything. But What If is kind of in a different place, and most people are enjoying it a lot more than we are. So even though we are enjoying it, so I'll watch it when they come out, and hopefully it gets better in terms of the animation quality and
hopefully
the actors getting more used to doing voice acting. But I'm excited to see what happens, and I do think that they will cross over because I think
Yeah,
the idea of the multiverse is becoming so prevalent that they won't just leave things hanging.
we gotta get all these guys in a room together and see what wacky shenanigans happen, Tucker.
Mhm.
But if you want to see what other wacky shenanigans we get up to, you should subscribe to Backlog Banter. Once again, you should join the Discord. That link's in the description. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, everyone. And we'll see you at the finale of What If. See you guys.
Bye.